You're on.
Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Glendale's 2015, April 15 Planning Commission meeting. Ms. Mavandi, if we may have a roll call, please.
Planning Commissioners Astorian.
Here.
Landrigan.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Manukian.
Here.
And Yesayan.
Very good. And I believe in the absence of Ms. Stotler, you are going to give us the report for posting of the agenda.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on Wednesday, April 8, 2015, on the bulletin board outside City Hall and on the city's website.
Thank you. And Commissioner Lee, may we follow you in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I need a motion for the approval of the minutes for April 1st meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Abstain.
A second?
I second.
Very good. Thank you very much. So I don't see any cards for oral communication. Is there anybody here that wants to address the Planning Commission for anything other than it's on the agenda? Didn't think so. Thank you very much. Item number 6 is zoning appeals. We see none. And item number 7, I have nothing to report either. And I believe there was a request for me to change the item under new business item A with item B. So we're going to look at item B first?
Please.
Okay, very good. So item B is concerns itself with 125 North Central Avenue and 318 West Wilson Avenue. It's a subdivision of land vesting tentative tract map number 72842. The applicant is Mollusky Group of Companies. Do we have an applicant here?
I'm representing the applicant, I'm the engineer.
Okay, so have you filled out a card, sir? So, all right, so the zoning is downtown specific plan, transitional district, and I believe it is Mr. Rader that is going to be. No, you can sit down. I just was wondering if you have filled out a card or not. That's all. Thank you. Appreciate it. So we're going to go to item number B. Mr. Rader, we're waiting for you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just a point of clarification, Chairman, Astorian, and Commissioners. This project was originally noticed as a vesting tentative tract map. The applicant has since changed the request to tentative tract map. So this is what the Commissioners will be voting on, a tentative tract map, not vesting.
This Landry.
Does that mean that it was not noticed correctly?
Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, Jillian Van Mine, City Attorney's Office. It is still a tentative tract map. The issue is whether or not the map would be a vesting map or just a regular tentative tract map. The distinction there is the vested rights that go with the approval. Without the vesting component, the vesting wouldn't occur until building permits are validly issued for the development. So the request for that component of vesting early has been withdrawn. So in substance, it doesn't change the fact that the map is before you or anything substantive about the map before you for consideration. It has to do with the timing of the vested rights. So it was adequately noticed for purposes of the map. It's just that vesting component that it was changed. So there's no prejudice to the applicant is here. It was duly and properly noticed. So there's no issue with you proceeding to hear the matter at this time.
I'm sorry, before we forget, let me open the public hearing officially. Mr. Rader.
So with that, good evening, Commissioners, and the project before you is, as you state, Chairman Astorian, is located at 125 North Central Avenue and 318 West Wilson Avenue. The request is to subdivide a new mixed-use project into two parcels, one commercial parcel, which is on the ground floor, and one residential parcel. The residential component contains 164 apartment units. The subject site is located within the DSP transitional district, and it is surrounded to the west by multifamily dwellings, to the east, north, and south by commercial and office-type establishments. The site is approximately 59,492 square feet, or 1.4 acres, and will comprise of 2 lots and a vacated alley. The site is flat and rectangular in shape and comprised of 2 buildings which have now been demolished, so the site is completely cleared. And the project is in plan check. On April 8, 2014, the board approved the final design, stage 2 design, as well as the development agreement, a conditional use permit for off-site sales of alcoholic beverages for the retail tenant, an alley vacation, and a use variance for a drive-through in the DSP. The commissioner looked at the development agreement and the street vacation for this project before it went to the planning committee, before it went to the city council. And also, an addendum was prepared to the previously certified downtown specific plan environmental impact report, and that was acknowledged by the city council when the project was approved on April 8, 2014. And that addendum included the tentative track map as part of the overall proposal. The project was reviewed against a number of general plan land use elements such as circulation, land use, noise, housing, historic preservation, safety, recreation, and open space. And staff finds that the project meets all those elements within the general plan. And with that, I conclude my presentations, and the drawings are behind you. If you have any questions, I'm available, as well as the applicant for this project.
Yes.
By all means.
Just a couple of questions. You said that the circulation, you had reviewed the circulation elements and it had been approved?
That was looked at as part of the overall project.
Sure.
Yes.
Just so that those who take the time to view today's broadcast, when city staff looks at the traffic related to a particular project, do they look at it in a vacuum, or do they look at it in conjunction with all the other traffic that the other projects in the area will create?
Staff look at it as a big picture approach in comparison to other projects that's going on within the area.
No, I understand that.
I don't remember the.
So this project has over 100 units.
Yes.
Attached to it. Okay. So we have a number of other projects in this area with multiple residential units. Now, when the staff looked at this project, did they look at this project with just by itself, or did they look at it in conjunction with all of these other projects that are going up simultaneously?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I did read this environmental impact report for the Downtown Specific Plan, EIR, which looked at the build-out, which included this project as part of the overall envelope of anticipated development that could be developed as a consequence of the approval of the Downtown Specific Plan, for which that EIR was prepared. To the extent that there are minor technical changes to what had been approved or anticipated in the EIR, an addendum is appropriate. An addendum is only appropriate if there are no new significant impacts. When a project is examined, all of the related projects that could be approved or were approved, let me back up, not could be approved, that for which applications have been received and their legitimate proposals are examined to see whether or not this project and all those related projects fit within the envelope of environmental analysis for the downtown specific plan. This project did fit within that environmental analysis for the DSP EIR, Environmental Impact Report. And an addendum was prepared to note minor changes that were not of a significant environmental nature. So, of course, all those categories of impacts were examined, including traffic. So that was previously certified.
Yes, Ms. Landry.
Mr. Duong, one of the things that you said, but is not written in the staff report, is you said it was acknowledged by the City Council on April 8th, 2014. Everywhere in my staff report it says April 8th, 2015. I'm sorry?
Probably been a typo. 2014 is the year that when the project was approved.
Including the environmental documentation?
Yes.
All right, so page 7 and page 2 are incorrect. Well, that makes a difference in us reading the staff report, by the way.
But you're referring to the addendum, not the actual report. That's why it's referred to April 8, 2015 as opposed to 2014. Isn't that so?
No, the addendum was completed.
2014.
Yes.
A year ago.
Okay. Any other questions? If there is none, I'd like to have the applicant, Mr. Moore.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good. My name is Alex Moore. I'm with Holland Foreman. We prepared the subdivision map, and we're located at 145 South Spring Street in downtown Los Angeles. Just wanted to come here and offer my assistance in any questions on the project, on the subdivision itself. We've read the staff report and are okay with all the conditions that have been prepared, so I have nothing further.
Very good. And if there are no questions from Mr. Moore, thank you, sir. You may be seated.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other questions from staff? Should I close the public hearing so we can deliberate on it?
Yeah, I have some. I have a question. So,
Not from you, sir. From the
you're
staff.
good.
Sorry, I appreciate your exuberance. Thank you.
So, based on my earlier question, I just want to clarify this point because this is important. This is a subject matter that there's a lot of conversation about in the community because everybody's wondering all these units that are going up, whether their collective effect on the traffic of the city is being taken into consideration, and if so, what will that be? And by virtue of our vote today, we are saying that we are representing to the community that everything will be all right in terms of traffic, right? Among other things, but traffic certainly. When I'm looking at this, it says circulation. Circulation element objective 3.2 encourages housing development around and in commercial centers, and the project is consistent with this objective since it expands retail and housing opportunities in downtown Glendale. I understand that when the city staff was reviewing this application and putting it within the context of the downtown specific plan and so on, they would see this. That's not my question. My question is, were there specific studies done to tell us that if we add 126 units to that particular area in our downtown, that traffic would not be snarled beyond all recognition? Did anybody do that?
Yes, members of the Planning Commission, Commissioner Manukian. There was a traffic study that was prepared for the Downtown Specific Plan EIR that anticipated this number of units possible at this location and at other locations cumulatively throughout the Downtown Specific Plan area. And mitigation measures were I've actually asked for the Downtown Specific Plan EIR to be brought out if you want some specific information about the analysis that was done, the impacts that were found, and the mitigation measures that were required upon the approval of that EIR as it pertains to traffic and circulation. Hopefully that specific information will help to answer the questions.
So basically what was done was, and the EIR you're talking about is years old, right? The one that was approved by first this commission recommended to the city council, and the city council voted on it and approved it, and we have started implementing it for some time now.
Yes, and it was approved in August of 2006.
Right. Yes, I think I was on the commission at that time as well. My question is, so what we are doing now is we're running models, or we are going by the models that were run at the time of the development of that plan.
Based on all of the anticipated development that could be built within the build-out or the envelope of that plan. So anything and everything that was possible at its maximum densities was analyzed.
Okay. All right.
If you want specific, okay,
No,
thank you. We have it here if you care for that specific information.
Commissioner Landrigan.
I just want to say that when we did approve it, there was more open space that was provided as an incentive for the maximum FAR, and so there was more than double that was provided.
And those incentives now are either under consideration to be taken off, period, or what have you.
Or some developers decided not to take advantage of it.
Perhaps, and this may be off the subject, and I know city attorney may, give me an askance look at this moment, but perhaps there will be a time for us to also start speaking about transportation impact fees. And that's something that needs to be considered in the future. Mr. Commissioner Lee, any comments, questions?
I'm good.
Okay, so let me, unless you have other questions from the staff or anybody else?
From staff, just to add a little more information, now that I have the document open in front of me, the data is always projected out over a period of time, and that data was projected out to 2030 conditions with proposed project, which is the Downtown Specific Plan, and mitigation. So hopefully that provides some comfort level in the analysis under proposed expanded conditions up through 2030.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We close the public hearing. Are we ready for deliberation? Comments? Motions? No motions?
I'll make the motion. I move that upon review of the proposed tentative track map number 72842 for the mixed-use project located at 125 North Central Avenue and 318 West Wilson Avenue, that the Planning Commission hereby finds that the proposed track map is consistent with the general plan in accord with the findings set forth in the staff report for the project, and approves tentative track map number 72842.
I'll second, if you will take a friendly amendment, that the staff report have the dates of April 8th, 2015 changed to 2014.
So we have a motion and a second with some corrections. May we please have a roll call?
Planning Commissioners Landrigan,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Manukian,
Aye.
Chairperson Astorian.
Yes. Thank you. The next case in front of us under new business is item number A, and that involves 1225 Reynolds Drive, tentative parcel track map number 1629, PPM 1311259. The applicant is Mr. Bogosian Associates, and I believe Mr. Bagdikian is on this. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, can I ask that we hold off a little bit so that we can do some of the reading that we
Yes,
got?
please.
So then let's, if you don't mind,
I mean, we
will
received a
call
lot of material.
What about a 7-minute
10 minutes.
Would 7 minutes do it?
It was
It'll get me
Not as good as
started.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
So let's call a recess for 10 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, so welcome back to the Planning Commission meeting after recess. The under new business item number A has already been read into record, so we're going to go directly to Mr. Bagdikian, and I'm going to open the hearing site. So go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Planning Commissioners. This next proposal is for the subdivision. It's a tentative parcel map to subdivide an existing lot zoned R1 in the Adams Hill area into 3 lots. The property is presently developed with a single-family house. That's going to remain on one of the lots. The 2 new lots would each accommodate in the future a single-family dwelling. No problem. Sorry about that. So the property would be subdivided into 3 single-family lots, residential lots. The existing house would remain in the middle lot, which is proposed to be designed as a flag lot. The 2 other lots would each have frontages, one on Vista Court and the other one on Reynolds Drive, and they would eventually propose to be developed with a single-family dwelling each. This is a through lot of approximately 20,000 square feet. The proposed lot that would maintain the existing house would be approximately 8,900 square feet. Lot number 1, which will be fronting on Vista Court, would be approximately 5,600 square feet, and the lot number 3, fronting on Reynolds Drive, would be approximately 5,500 square feet. The minimum lot size in this zone, the minimum required lot size in this zone is 5,500 square feet. And I know that 5,500 square feet. There is a protected oak tree on the Vista Court frontage of the site. This protected oak tree has been reviewed by an arborist. The arborist's recommendation was not final, since the proposed house is not the final design. Staff has prepared for this project an initial study under CEQA, and staff's recommendation is a mitigated negative declaration. And the mitigation measure is to address the oak tree, and specifically states that when a particular proposal is submitted for review, which will be reviewed by the Design Review Board as a minimum, then a more detailed report will be provided regarding the preservation of the oak tree, and any mitigation measures will be addressed at that time. With respect to other aspects of this proposed subdivision, staff has reviewed the subdivision, and staff believes that it is consistent with the recommendations in the general plan, land use element, and other elements. It is also consistent with our zoning standards. So staff's recommendation is to recommend approval of the project with a number of conditions. I have a couple of corrections to make to the conditions, and if I may point them out in the motion, that's attached as Exhibit 1 to the staff report.
Tell us what page.
On page 3 of the motion, condition number 11. Condition number 11 comes from the Building and Safety Division. It's a condition that typically applies to commercial properties and businesses. So I've spoken to them. This entire condition should be deleted. On page number 6, the last page of the motion, the appeal period has been stated wrongly to be 15 days. It's actually 10 days. That's the motion shall be in full force and effect it should be 10 days after its passage, not 15. And on the first page of this motion, the first paragraph talks about 31 conditions. Since one of the conditions is being deleted, there should be 30 conditions. Having said this, I know there was a question from one of the commissioners regarding the size of the existing house in the middle lot. That's approximately 2,200 square feet based on the plans that are on the board behind you. I would like to conclude my staff presentation unless there are questions from the commission. The project applicant is in the audience. The property owner is in the audience to address any specific questions from the commission.
Thank you. Ms. Lanigan, you have a question for...
We also received some comments from the neighboring property owners, which we handed out to the commissioners.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Begdickian, I sent you an email and I spoke with you today, and there's new material that's on the board that I think you should introduce to the commissioners.
Okay, the new material that was not distributed is regarding the conceptual design of the two houses that are going to be proposed eventually on lots number 1 and number 3. They are, if I may point out, these are the plans of the existing house that's going to remain on the middle lot, lot number 2, and then the garage that was built on lot number 2. And these are the plans for the proposed houses on lots number 1 and 3. The proposed landscape plan for the site are there. The top one is the irrigation plan, the bottom one is the planting plan.
But those are in our...
They are. They have been
This is
distributed.
the one that was missing.
These two have not been
Right.
distributed because we didn't have them.
And A2, if I may amend some of what you said, shows the block wall moved, but it does not show a revised grading plan. Plus, I might say...
I'm sorry, I can't hear without the... Could you back turn, I'm sorry.
A2 shows the block wall removed, but it does not show a revised grading plan. And also, I posit, looking at the plan and the grading plan that's here, that this is an incorrect grading plan.
I posed the question to the applicant today, and the walls that are existing there are going to remain in place. So grading is not proposed in that area.
Well, we'll talk about this.
Well, that was a nice clarification, Ms. Lanigan, though. I mean, that I did not know that the grading was not going to be proposed for it, so...
Well, let me show you what's contrary to what you just said, sir.
Okay.
Here's the other grading plan.
It's
Right here, you have one wall, and you used to have a wall here on this. And if you're moving the property line to here, and this wall is that 14-foot wall that's behind here, then the property line needs to go here. So this is incorrect. And see these contour lines? They're not continued anywhere.
Right. What would take precedence over that is the parcel map. That's only conceptual at this point. We would rely on the parcel map for the final design. And the rest of the application forms that we have, and they specifically say no grading is being proposed.
And so I understand, Mr. Begdickian, that the parcel map is in front of us, but when something is put behind us that we have to conceptually even visualize it, I mean, the more complete it is, the better off here. But what she's referring to, it's, I mean...
Inconsistencies.
Measurable inconsistencies. Okay.
May I continue, though?
Of course.
Under Title 16 in subdivisions, which the Planning Department, it's under our zoning code, and I will read it. It's 16.12.050, required information for us to consider for the planning Commission to consider a subdivision required information. E, a plan for drainage and for handling stormwater. None. G, proposed street tree planting plan. I understand there are no street trees, so that's fine. H, a preliminary grading plan of sufficient detail to show the height, length, width of cut and fill, adequate cross sections to indicate the character of grading, street slopes, pad slopes, areas subject to the protection by this code, and a remedial plan to show how potential problem areas of slope failures could be corrected in areas proposed, etc. J, a preliminary hydrology report which shall estimate the quantity of all runoff and debris from on-site sources and from off-site uphill watershed tributary, and which shall consider each lot or dwelling unit site in the proposed subdivision. The law also requires this, that you cannot drain onto another property. You have to drain off. So if you look at this site and you look at this grading plan, the grading plan shows that there's a drop in elevation of about 10 feet from Vista Court to the neighbors. But if you look at the site, it has been graded, so that grading plan is not correct. So we don't even have a correct existing grading plan. My point is that for us to consider this, I think we have to have correct plans. Otherwise, I think we don't know what we're proving.
So let me just pause a second and ask the city attorney's opinion about the statements that were just made, because I personally I'm having also some issues with it too.
Sure. The Planning Commission's consideration of a parcel map, there are grounds for approval and there are grounds for denial. The map needs to be consistent with applicable general plan and specific plans. The site has to be physically suited for the proposed type of development or density, but it can be conditioned. And the design cannot be likely to cause significant or substantial environmental damage. That's typically analyzed in the environmental impact report. I think we've only got one issue there potentially. The design or the type of subdivision improvement shouldn't conflict with easements for public access and things of this nature. So that's what you would be looking at, would be the consistency of the plan and the suitability of the plan as proposed for the type or density of development. And I'm looking down because I'm reading from what the findings are required under the Government Code 66474. So those are the things that you're looking at as a basis for either their affirmative findings that it's suitable or their findings that you would make for purposes of not approving if any of those findings are made, such as lack of suitability or general plan inconsistency. Any finding would be grounds for denial of the map. So it's appropriate for you to take into consideration the requirements under Title 16, which is our subdivision, but also the Government Code as it pertains to required findings based on substantial evidence, facts in the record. Hopefully that answers your question. I think Mr. Foy has some additional information.
I would just also point out that we have some representatives from the Public Works Engineering Division here, too, so they may be able to give you the gist of the answers that you seek.
Are they available right now?
Yes, and you may also ask some questions of the applicant, too, to clear things up.
Very good. No, we'll get that. We'll get to that point. Do you have any other questions for Mr. Bagdikian? Seeing none. Therefore, we will go and start with the applicant, Mr. Bogosian, George Bogosian. Sir, you have 15 minutes, I believe. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of Commission. My name is George Bogosian of Bogosian and Associates. My address is 1111 North Brand Boulevard, Suite 202, Glendale, California. Zip code 91202. On this tentative parcel map, of course, you are right in saying that a grading plan should have been submitted. But what I wish to say to you that there is no grading to be done in here. In fact, the wall that we are showing for lot number 1, which are double wall existing, they will remain in place, although a wall is shown to be a 3-foot maybe, because along a new property or once it becomes a property line, you cannot put more than 3-foot high wall. That's maximum allowed by the zone. And this, regardless of whatever it is, these plans will be going to the building department. All the departments will be checking thoroughly before they approve anything. So the parcel map here before you does not have any grading because it doesn't do any, we have no grading anticipated to do in here. Not even probably 10 cubic yards. It's going to be remain as it is what you see. So as you see lot 1, which is the highest portion of the lot, maximum from one end to another end is only 3 feet. So you can see that there is no grading to be done. But you were very right about the drainage. The drainage will be shown. We should have shown one pipe where the drainage goes into the street, conducted into the street. Of course, the high point is on lot 1. That drainage, same owner will be providing an easement. This, again, it goes to the city. They will not allow you to do once, even though no grading, but once you submit to the planning, building department, building and safety, they will be looking at it. Where are you going to drainage, conduct your drainage, whether lot 1, lot 2, or lot 3. And we have to provide a 5-foot easement for drainage purposes, which will cross and get back to Reynolds. Any drainage, once the design of the house is made and the proposal will go through design review board, and they will be all shown clearly where everything is going to happen. It's a very simple situation in here. And if you have any more technical questions that I can answer you, I will be very glad to clarify everything for you. And in effect, we are moving only 2 palm trees in here. The remaining remains as it is. Do you have any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Bogosian?
Of course, I may state this, that we have reviewed all of the conditions that the planning department has set forth. We will comply fully with those conditions, 30 conditions. And as far as the questions, letters received on the size of the lot, the staff, the zoning can clarify that 5,500 is the minimum required, which we meet all those conditions. And any other pertinent information as far as parking issue on the letters we had received, I'd like to address that. The parking is plenty parking on the street. Also, we will have a guest parking. Will be.
May I please, folks.
As engineer, we have gone through that street many times, and we have never seen any shortage of the parking. Not only that, but it's a single home with 2 garages. Each one will have 2 parking garages. In addition to that, the driveway, long driveway, your guests can be parking there too, in case if there was no space in the street. So anyway, any questions that you have that I can be of a help, I'll be very happy to answer you.
Thank you, Mr. Bogosian. We are going to hear the rest of our guests. Appreciate it. Okay, so folks, you're each going to have 5 minutes, and if you want to take a little bit longer or shorter, it's going to be quite all right. Utebam.
Good evening, commissioners. Okay. Thank you. My name is Ute Baum, landscape architect. I live at 1208 Cottage Grove. I've lived there a long time. And as regards the property in question on 1225 Reynolds, I have to protest the proposed subdivision of this property. The house, as it sits now, sits right in the middle of the property and has sat there since, I believe, 1904. It used to be a lovely house with distinctive architectural features. However, just because there is a little room in front and some in back, that does not justify cramming those two extra houses into this property. This neighborhood isn't. I live one street away from Reynolds, and the neighborhood is a diminutive neighborhood of smallish houses that have been there a long time. As a matter of fact, Cottage Grove is a historic district, which we engineered, and just because the zoning may be adequate, maybe the lot size may be adequate, I think it's a travesty to cram two-story houses on each side of that lot. Let me see my notes here. I thought the standard lot size was more than what is actually allowed of 5,500. So the nuts and bolts of it, they allow for these extra two houses. But a house does not sit on an island by itself. It sits in a neighborhood with similar houses surrounding it, all complementing each other and all relating to each other. And I believe that the addition of two-story houses on top of it all would be nothing but detrimental to our neighborhood. The other issue I have is Mr. Bogosian mentioned that only 2 trees were going to be removed. There are some mature Canary Island pines on that property. There's no demolition plan as to what is going to happen to these pines. And most of all, there's this gorgeous mature oak tree which has a drip line of 29 feet out. I measured it this morning, which is not nearly adequately shown on that plot plan up there. And any construction on that smaller lot 1, I believe it is really going to impact that oak. A few years ago, when different owners owned this property, they started butchering that oak, and one of our Adams Hill neighbors saw it and ran to the city and notified them, and they in turn made them stop doing their handiwork. And for years there was a big one of these orange construction fences around the oak. I understand there are new owners now, but I'm very, very alarmed about the adequate protection and preservation of this wonderful oak tree. Anyway, I just want to reiterate that I believe that it's outrageous that anybody would want to put two-story houses crammed in on either side of that house that sits there now. And here's a picture of the oak, and I'm sure you've all seen it or been there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, Brian Austin. Mr. Austin, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and commissioners. My name is Brian Austin, and my wife and I own and reside at 1215 Reynolds Drive. We've been there about 33 or 4 years. I'm here tonight to express my opposition to the proposed lot split at 1225 Reynolds Drive and the subsequent plans to build the new homes. While I respect the right of Mr. and Mrs. Brisky, or the Briskies, to explore the possibility of dividing the lot in question, I feel the reasons to deny the application of subdivision are simple. More residents and cars will have a negative impact on the quality of life for the surrounding neighbors and erode the safety of the neighborhood. The first and foremost impact will be the addition of more cars. Even with off-street parking requirements being met, any reasonable person knows there will be additional burdens on what is already a lack of off-street parking in the area. Every night, Reynolds Drive is packed solid with vehicles, many of them belonging to individuals that live in the multifamily buildings on Palmer Avenue, half a block away. Also of concern is the fact the majority of the streets in the neighborhood are so narrow that cars traveling in opposite directions cannot pass side by side. One driver must pull into a space, thus enabling the second car to pass by. In fact, Reynolds Drive is so narrow there is only parking on one side of the street, and the street on one side of the street, and two cars traveling in opposite directions still can't pass simultaneously without one driver ducking into an empty space. There are already too many cars using these narrow streets. Several years ago, a 12-unit building was built at the corner of Vista Court and Green Street. And ever since then, the residents on the feeder streets to that complex have suffered. Two of those feeder streets are Reynolds Drive and Vista Court. I realize that we are talking about only two more homes, but the streets have already reached the saturation point. Taking a position of it's just two more is irresponsible in my opinion. The next point of concern is the additional burden two more households will place on what is already a critical water supply condition. I do not understand how any new housing can be approved when we are at such a critical point. I don't see the moral reasoning in imposing usage restrictions along with fines for offenders and then approving projects that will further burden the dwindling water supply. When further considering this matter, I trust the members of the Planning Commission will listen and consider all the issues and ultimately make the only responsible decision that is in the best commission, make the only responsible decision that is best for the community as a whole and not just for an individual. And that would be to deny the application of this subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Navandi, does your light work?
Yeah,
It does, right?
it will go.
I mean, it does turn
Yeah, it is now orange. so-
green.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Miss Margaret Hammond. Welcome, Miss Hammond.
Good evening, sir. My name is Margaret Hammond. I've been living on Adams Hill since 1959, and I happen to love it there, and it's where I choose to live, even though it has become a nightmare for parking and traffic. Again, as Mr. Austin says, I have people, when I try to come down off Cypress, I live right on the top, I head on. I have people coming at me head on. There is only parking on one side of the street on Cypress, And unfortunately, as he says, a lot of cars could not pass each other on the lower streets, like Reynolds and Vista and so forth. If you travel around coming up from Palmer, trying to get through that area is just absolutely crazy. Again, as I said at the last city council meeting, our city has become nothing but one huge parking lot. It's unbelievable. You can go up and down the streets at night and whatnot, and cars are bumper to bumper parked along the streets. I mean, it's insane. If we keep on going, what are we going to do? We're going to be trapped up on top of the hill and not even be able to get down. But again, the water shortage. Our area up there, we just got new hydrants and water and pipes to get water up to that area because we were short. We were in really a bad position. If there'd been a bad fire up there, we'd have been goofed because there wasn't the hydrants, there wasn't the water pressure to put any fire out. And if you're adding more people to it, and the whole point being, okay, the city of 200,000, we have 100,000 people below, Broadway? Maybe it's Colorado. And it narrows down into our section, which is barely, a few streets across, to tell you the truth, at the bottom end. And so, therefore, we're taking the brunt of all these people coming in. And they all do have to get out of Glendale. They come down Glendale Avenue, whatever. So the traffic ends up impacting us terrifically, trying to get in and out of our streets. And cars come over the hill. They come from even Eagle Rock. I have friends, and they come over. Matter of fact, they use Cypress as a cut-through to get to Glendale Avenue to go to Los Feliz. And we have nothing but traffic, a lot of traffic on that street. I mean, it's really scary trying to drive on there. I'm telling you, you've got to be. If I didn't have an attitude like I do, they'd probably run over me. But I stand my ground because I feel they have to learn manners for one thing when they're driving, but for the second, there's nowhere for them to go. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Our quality of life has really gone down. It's really a bad situation, and mostly too many people. Now, this subdivision thing, okay. We can't stop them from building on it, but 2 houses, the one that's there already and another one, that would be acceptable because then it would not, again, add to the parking situation. The parking on Vista right now on that street, they're all along there. There's a man has a trailer on the back of his truck, and it parks there all the time. It's one of those food trucks or something. So it's really bad. I mean, and to add to it, it's not right. That's all I can say. We really need to think and quit thinking in the idea of the almighty buck and think more of the quality of life for the citizens of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sound. Next speaker is Sean Brisky. Welcome, Mr. Brisky.
Hi. I'm the owner. I'm also an architect. My primary motivation for doing this subdivision is because I'm an architect. This is an opportunity to build houses of my own design, which is significant for me. One thing I'd like to say is the work I've done on the existing house, I worked with the city. I think Jay Platt was the person who did Jay Platt was the person who did the design review on it. And from what I've heard from other neighbors is, most people consider it a successful redesign. The other part of that is that existing house was a duplex. So when people talk about adding 2 new households to the neighborhood, it's not actually accurate. Because when we converted the existing house, we made it a single-family home. So really only 1 new household would be added to the neighborhood. Also, another goal with the new houses is to build, recently we're in a drought. The houses I would like to build would be 100% sustainable houses. So things like the stormwater, one of my ideas would be to put an underground tank behind the retaining wall, and I would retain all the stormwater, and then it would be used for irrigation of the landscaping. I'm very cognizant of the oak tree. And in fact, I grow my own oak trees and have several, on pots in the property. and would work with the arborist to make sure that no harm comes to the oak tree. The only other thing is I love Adams Hill. It's a beautiful neighborhood. I'm committed to keeping it that way. I think, you know, there's more younger residents who are going to be moving into the neighborhood. These houses, even though they're they're new houses, but they're very small. Both houses are under 1,800 square feet. They are in keeping with the size of the neighborhood. And I think it's well, I don't know, they'll be good quality, custom homes, carefully designed. I would work with the city, the design review, and also with the landscaping. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Ms. Ingrid Wilcox.
Good evening.
Welcome.
I think that you've all kind of seen what I have to say in the submission of my comments and photographs, etc. Don't want to get into disputing anything that anyone really says, except that I've lived. Oh, sure. I've lived at 1225 Vista Court for 6 years, 6.5 years, and the notion of a duplex in the existing house at 1225 Reynolds is a bit of a misnomer. I watched the previous owners of that property redo the upper portion of that home when one of their children got married so they could live there, and that's who lived there. That was my impression of what went on over there. I don't think that the house was ever completely separate, but again, that's my impression. Otherwise, I think my feelings and sensibilities are pretty clear. I'm really concerned about building, especially on lot number 1, because I'm right next to it, because my property's on a slope. The photos demonstrate that. I'm concerned about the tree. I'm concerned about drainage. I'm concerned about tripling the number of people who live on that lot that I've lived next to for quite a while, enjoying the privacy and all the other things that go with it. And other than that, I'm waiting to see what everyone decides to do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Next speaker is Mr. Henry Hernandez. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Henry Hernandez, and excuse my English, but it is what it is. I live next door to the proposed property for 30 years. And when I came here, I was worried about two-building house and this and that, but now I'm worried about flooding of my property because it's you guys talking about putting like special things, but what about when a storm come and my property is kind of below his property, and now I'm worried about something else, you know. 30 years ago, I remember the house that he said that it's really nice. It used to be really nice. Now, I don't know what kind of design, maybe I'm not used to, but something that is not, to me, it's not nice, put it like this, but it's my opinion. And another thing that I want to mention is the problem of the parking. I don't know his name, but he says that he went around and he sees that everything looks good at night. Well, the whole street, you only can park eight cars, you know. Not even the owners park inside their parking because they cannot find a space. So just to mention to you, it's only 8 spaces in the whole street for the cars. So I guess if you add 2 more houses, what it's going to be, or how we're going to live, like Brian says. You know. Another thing that I want to mention is that house, it used to be before the former people who live over there, it used to be like a park. It was such a beautiful place. Used to have beautiful trees, they came, chop it out, and they gone. I wonder if that's going to happen to the tree in Vista Court, because once they start building, eventually they're going to say, oh, we got to cut this root and this other root and this other root, and finally the tree is going to be gone. And I understand he says that it's going to be younger people coming, but right now we live over there, and we have to deal with the problems of parking and more crowd. Another thing that I want to mention is I guess that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Appreciate it. Next speaker is Mr. Roldan, Kevin Roldan. Welcome, Mr. Roldan.
Thank you. Well, first off, I have my wife over here, and she's the homeowner of the individual who wants to make the planning the houses, and mine's going to be real simple. One, the parking there is horrific, as you heard. Gentleman says that parking's fine. No. If you go there during at 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, you will see that there's no parking. You really have to fight for parking out there. Where parking, there's even cars there that are broken down or taking up parking space, which I had to call a couple of times to see if they can get some tickets out. Also, the fact that the house that the gentleman wants to build doesn't fit the neighborhood, okay? It's a historical area. Now, he wants to build new houses with solar panel. We had this conversation with the homeowner. He wants to build with solar panels on the houses, which is fine, but that's an eyesore for us. As my wife, who owns the house, and where he wants to build, I believe, the second house on Reynolds Drive, because we live off 1231 Reynolds Drive. That's an eyesore for us. We're going to be dealing with construction, noise for up to a year to I don't know how long, but he says within 9 months, but I believe it'd be longer. Dealing with parking again, just with the construction individuals, as well as the new people are coming in. But again, it doesn't fit the area. The housing that he wants to propose doesn't fit the area. In the historical area there. I think that's about it for me, but my wife has more notes on me on that. But to me, it's just that coming to Adams Hills is a beautiful place, and building modern homes into a historical area doesn't look right. It fits out of the area. So, but that's my opinion, but hopefully you'll take that into consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Roldan. This is Susanna Melgoza Roldan. Did I pronounce that properly? Welcome, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Susanna Melgoza. I purchased a home in September 28, 2001. I moved out of the community where I lived before because I wanted to live in a nice, peaceful, charming community. When I bought the home, the house next to me, 1225 on Reynolds Drive, was a beautiful home. Beautiful fruit trees, just a beautiful forest-like feeling. And the owner who lived there was a very nice man. Fortunately, for whatever circumstances, he lost his home and he left. Anyways, my concern, as my husband proposed, is that the lot number 3, which will be next to my house, is going to be a 2-story home. My concern is it's going to block my view, and yes, I do have a view of the city. Beautiful palm trees, traffic, noise, dust. My parents live in my home. My mom's 87 years old. My father is 77. and I have 3 dogs. It's a beautiful home. My home is not big. It's 1,230 square feet. It's a small single-story home. I do have a long driveway. I'm fortunate for parking. I know other neighbors don't have the luxury that I do with the driveway. But my concern is, like my husband said, I saw the plans. I'm all for, building new homes and improving the city, but not when it comes to affecting a little community like ours. And I'm all for renovation when you're going to better your own home. But I don't agree with building homes to sell for profit. I understand he's in his right. It's his land, his property. But I would prefer, if he's improving his home, to beautify his home. Knocking down the palm trees that are on Reynolds Drive is going to be just a sad thing. All the fruit trees, all the plant vegetation that was planted there by the previous owner are beautiful trees, landscape. So my concern is, like I said, the noise. 2-story home that's going to be 6 feet away from my property line, blocking the view, the dust and the noise. And another concern I have, which I've been there for 14 years now, and I never had this concern, I've had rat infestation. I could not believe, where is this coming from? And talking to other neighbors, they had the same issue. And it seems that with the digging that has been going on, rats are coming out. And so for the last 3 months, I have been fighting for, about getting rid of rats. And that has never been an issue. And it didn't dwell on me that because of all the, digging and construction that's going on right now, preliminary construction with just a single family dwelling home that he has right now, that's going on right now. So what's going to happen when we have 2 more construction sites on the site of my lot number 3 and lot number 1? So I feel that from all the concerns here, I am the most affected. I am right next to the lot number 3. And I am very concerned. I'm posting this as a concern. I'm not saying I'm opposed. I am concerned. I want to get informed. I want to get information. And I understand his right, as I would if I wanted to beautify my home. But I feel there is a difference between flipping houses or building homes to sell other than to restore the homes. And like my husband said, Adams Hill has a high standard of community and unity and coming together and building homes to beautify our community, but not for homes that are not going to serve the purpose of our community in the sense that, like he presented it, new generations of people and younger people are coming. Well, I came as a younger person. I was 33 years old when I bought my home. And I went there because I wanted the charm of that community. And my house is very little, and I love that my house is very little. That's what I was looking for. And another concern that I had was, as his neighbor, he never once came to me and spoke to me about his plans. He's in his right to build, but out of courtesy, I think he would have, if he would have come to me and said, I'm planning to build here, what do you think? He did not even once acknowledge me and told me, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to build. It's going to affect you. It's going to affect you for a year or whatever it is, but I'm going to build a 2-story home. It's going to affect your view and so forth. So out of common courtesy, if I had been in his position, I would have done that. I would have spoken to my neighbors and said, let me get a feeling on what's going on. So that's just my opinion on that. And that's about it. Just concerned. I'm a concerned resident who will be affected, like I said, by the building of lot number 3. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Jenny Moffat. Welcome.
Hi. I live next door. My family has owned the property there for over 30 years. Me and my husband moved in there once we got married, and we've always had the problem of parking. I get home about 5 o'clock, and sometimes there's parking everywhere, and then sometimes there's no parking. I have to if I want to go out after 7 o'clock, I really have to think about it because there's that chance that I might not find parking. And then I'm having to, drive up the street and walk a block to my house where normally I could park right in front of my house. So it's concerning that they want to build 2 more houses in that area. That's at least 4 more cars. So it just kind of doesn't make sense to try to get more houses on a property. It's just going to affect everybody. I have the same concerns as my neighbors, and I lived there my whole life pretty much, and to see something like this is just concerning. And I have the same concerns as everybody, and what's going to happen with parking. So now I'm just going to be stuck at home after 5 o'clock because I'm not going to be able to find parking, and I'm going to have to park down the street further down. It's just, I don't know, I just really hope you guys think about this and really, take all of everybody's concerns into consideration. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Aurora Meza.
She wants me to translate. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, of course it is.
Okay, she's not in agreement with a building of a new home. Sorry. Su nombre?
Aurora Mesa.
Su dirección, ¿qué es?
It's 1221 Reynolds Drive.
She's to the right of the lot. She would be impacted by lot number 3. And basically, she says, to reiterate what I said, that she's in agreement with what I said, and then she's opposed to the building of a new construction for the same reasons that I posed, and also that the traffic, the noise, and the parking, as her daughter just talked about. So,
También vivo por 30 años allí.
she's lived there for 30 years.
Pues estábamos contentos con la situación que estábamos, pero ahorita como que se está poniendo.
She has been very happy with the situation, how it was before, with the lot, the way it looked with the plants and forests, but now she's not. She's concerned about how it's going to change and how it's going to look. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Scott and Marcella Cromford, or Crawford? Cramford.
My wife just.
Got it. Does she also want to speak other
might
than
come
you?
in. She can join me.
Fine.
I'm sure she'll figure it out.
Welcome.
Thank you. I think that most of the neighborhood doesn't really want this. It's not really going to benefit the neighborhood. My wife and I and my son have lived there 15 years. Well, my son is 11, so he's lived there 11 years. Oh, I'm sorry. A lot of the people who live in the neighborhood are retired, and they're really a nice group of people. Most of them are retired. They live there a long time, and they've really been nice to us. So I want to stand up for them because I know they don't want it. I understand that, people want to make money. That's great, but it's not the neighborhood to try to do that in. It's, it's a community of people, and it shouldn't be a business opportunity. Do you have anything to say, Marcelo?
Please give us your name first before you.
Oh, it's
My
Marcella.
name is Marcella Cranford. I live at 1210 Reynolds Drive. We've been there for 15 years. And when we first came to the neighborhood, we were instantly charmed by not just the homes, the beautiful, graceful, old Tropico style. It's the neighbors, it's the people. I know Brian and Maria and Uta, and we've known each other and respected each other and respected the neighborhood all of these years because it means so much to us. And it's just really a shame to see one group take something so beautiful and just leave a mark in a neighborhood. That it would leave an indelible mark forever because it just doesn't fit. It wouldn't fit at all in that sort of neighborhood. I hope you'll reconsider the plans.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Mr. Bogosia, you got a 5-minute rebuttal? Is it 5 minutes, Ms. Mavandia?
Yes.
If you'd like to address any one of the issues that you just heard.
Of course.
Mr. Chairman and members of Commission. George Bogosian again, and I wish to address some of the issues. The summary of all what I heard in here before you was a view that may be impaired by this two-story home, water storage, water shortage, I should say, and parking and historical issue. These 4 items that I gathered from these speakers. I respect them very much, and the neighbors, I like to be respectful, but I didn't find, I hope you did, I didn't find anything special other than I'm here, I don't want anything else to be done next to me. In effect, that is what I gathered from this discussion. Moreover, parking apparently, all these people are relying on parking into the street. They don't have their garages. With this new development, new 2 homes only added in here, both of them will have their own 2 garages, including a length which you can park another 2 cars without leaving any hope of parking in the street. So in effect, by adding these 2 homes will never affect the parking of the situation regardless of what it is today. And I am sure the planning department has reviewed thoroughly before even they come and consider approval of the project. So with saying this, I wish that you will take into consideration that every individual has their rights. Just because it could be another additional home built and sold, but what about the enjoyment of another person who will be purchasing a home and 1,600 square foot or 1,700 to live in there and enjoy themselves too? What is stopping them? I mean, is it just me that I'm going to have what I want to have? And I don't want nobody coming close to me? And you can see the issues, water shortage. If the department, a water department, we have conditions in here. If they had anything to say, they would have said. Electrical, fire department, they are not mute to stop and say, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. This is city of Glendale is not like that. And moreover, there is no view protection in here, especially in Glendale. And to add further, all the requirements, they still have to go through design review board. Anything they do, if it will affect any trees, any of the landscaping or just the new design concept or whatever they will be doing, it's not just going to be done because whatever the architect wants. It has to go through the design review board and be approved and be compatible with the neighborhood. So obviously, you know what it takes to build a home in Glendale. I will leave it to you then. And if you have any questions, I will answer.
Ms. Landrigan.
Thank you, Mr. Bogosian. I do have a question for you. Do you mind coming up here and looking at this photograph here? This retaining wall behind the existing home.
Yes.
And it's made out of block. Looks
Correct.
like
it's
can't
concrete
even,
block, yes.
Yeah, I don't know what
it is.
All right. So
yeah, I can see reinforcing bars.
So this is now holding up. There's the oak tree.
Yes.
So it's proposed in what the tentative track map says to move this to here. That's what it says.
We are not going to remove. You can put that into your conditions of approval.
But
it
now,
will remain in place.
But now then, if that's the case, the concern I have is that this is where you show the new track map division of a property. So this
Correct.
becomes property 1 and property 2.
Correct.
So this stays on. So this will be the dividing line here?
That's correct.
Will there be
It will be.
That's kind of odd, isn't it?
It will be left as a landscaping or whatever usage they will
Okay.
use, but the property line remains where the
Right
wall
there.
is.
So this, whatever it looks like it's
That will remain
8
in
foot.
place. You can put as a conditions of approval. We will
I just
not
was
be
curious.
touching that.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Bogosian? Or the staff in that matter before we...
I have one clarification. A lot of the speakers talked about, having the area being the historical area, and in the report, it doesn't really reflect that. So what is the status of that area?
Planning commissioners, the house in itself is not a listed historic resource. It has. I spoke with our historic preservation planner. The house has had several modifications in the past, not recent past, but in the past, and it hasn't retained any of its character. So, and recent modifications have been done and exempted from the design review board. So the house in itself is not historic. The property is not historic. The historic district is like a block away, the Cottage Grove Historic District. So this block is not zoned historic district. It doesn't have the historic district overlay. And it is zoned R1. There are other properties zoned R1 around it, but the property to the west is unique. It's zoned R1R. It's a large house, and it's situated higher up compared to the street. So it's an entirely different, it has an entirely different character and zone and general plan designation. The guide for the Planning Commission in the parcel map process is to use lots, lot size, configuration, and so on within 500 feet of the subject property, but excluding lots that are, or development properties under a different zone. So the consideration is for lots and development of the same zone and of the same general plan designation within a 500-foot distance. So the lot to the west would be excluded from this, the comparison. So we've looked at it there are many lots, and the average lot size within that 500-foot radius are very comparable to what's being proposed, and that's why our recommendation was to approve the proposal. And more detail, any proposed house on proposed lot 1 and 3 would have to go as a minimum through the design review board process, which will look at specifically the design, landscaping, and integration. And with respect to the oak tree, we didn't think the presence of the oak tree would preclude the development of lot 1 altogether. Some development should be doable, and that's why our recommendation to include that mitigation measure so that any impact on the oak tree will be closely investigated at the time a specific proposal is submitted, and that would be as a minimum through design review unless some other discretionary entitlement is applied for prior to design review.
And one of the comments that Commissioner Landrigan made was that when we are reviewing these drawings, we were familiar with getting some of the storm drains, water runoffs, to determine whether or not a proper housing could be built on the lots. And obviously that's not part of this, the proposal here. And, without those things, do you feel comfortable, with this subdivision?
Yes, and in fact, I had a conversation with our Public Works Engineering staff, who are also here in case there are further questions. With respect to the hydrology study that is typically required, when the project was reviewed by the Public Works Engineering Division as part of our normal review that goes through all the city divisions involved in this development process, the Public Works Engineering Division has not indicated that a hydrology study would be required in this case. Besides the addition of hard surfaces and roof surfaces is not that significant to warrant the study. With respect to the drainage of lot number 1, which is situated a little higher compared to the middle lot and lot number 3, drainage of that lot, there is an option, either drain it towards Vista Court, but because the property slopes away from Vista Court, that would be through a sump pump. And the other option would be to drain it via an easement through lot number 2 towards Reynolds Drive. And since the entire property is under the same ownership, the Public Works Division did not indicate that an easement would be required. They would typically do that if there are different ownerships involved so that that can be ascertained. In this case, the owner is the same. And
but when we do the subdivision, there is a potential of different ownership for those 3 different lots.
All 3 of them.
Right. If the property is sold, then if the property owner chooses to drain, let's say, through lot number 2 towards Reynolds Drive, then that instrument will be put in place. But if the property owner, which is also optional, chooses to drain lot number 1 towards Vista Court, that wouldn't be a requirement.
Shouldn't the language be included in?
There is language already, and let me show you that language. It's on in the motion, page 2, and it's condition number 2, that a grading and drainage plan will be submitted to the engineering division for review and approval. So at that time, those mechanisms will be put in place.
About the easement?
About whether it's an easement or a sump pump. If it's a sump pump, let's say, draining towards Vista Court, that would be entirely on the same lot, and an easement would not be necessary in that case. So because of that optionality, it was not specifically worded.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it does not fall through the cracks somewhere.
And it will not, and if you wish to speak with our Public Works Engineering staff, they are available here tonight.
Any other questions for Mr. Bogosian before we have him stand up?
I do have one more question.
Yes.
So, do you mind looking at this photograph again? What I have drawn where the property line is here now, based upon your tentative track map, it would be right here, and what would a fence be put up there? If I'm looking right here, if we could do that. So so it's right there. So here's this retaining wall here, and this looks to be. So is that about right? That's where the new property line would be.
But a new fence, only a fence, not a wall even.
Just a
could
fence.
Be set right in here, just
And
to
then-
show the property line.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Not a block wall, just a fence.
Just a fence.
Any other questions for the applicant? You may take your seat, Mr. Bogosian. Thank you very much. So our minimum lot size requirement, Mr. Bagdigian, is 5,500 square feet.
Yes, that's
for
correct.
that zone. And I'm going to ask the city attorney just one more question about the track map, subdivision map back, and so forth. Really, what is in front of us is not matters of design. Really, what is not in front of... Yes, go ahead, ma'am.
Well, design and improvements are in front of you, but there's a definition under the MAP Act that I think might be useful. So I will, if you'll allow me, let you know what the MAP Act says about design. When it's referring to design, it's referring to street alignments, grades, and widths, drainage and sanitary facilities and utilities, including alignments and grades thereof, the location and size of all required easements and rights of way, fire roads and fire breaks, lot size and configuration, traffic access, grading, land to be dedicated for park or other purposes, and other specific physical requirements in the plan and configuration of the entire subdivision as may be necessary to ensure consistency with or implementation of the general plan or an applicable specific plan. And so that's what the government code says about design. Now, improvements are defined as well, and that is the improvement is any street work or utilities to be installed or agreed to be installed by the subdivider on the land to be used for public or private streets, highways, ways, and easements. So we're talking about public improvements in that particular instance, as are necessary for the general plan, general use of the lot owners in the subdivision and local neighborhood traffic and drainage needs as a condition precedent to the approval and acceptance of a final map thereof, and such other specific improvements or types of improvements, the installation of which, either by the subdivider, by public agencies or private utilities, or by any other entity approved by the local agency, or a combination of thereof, is necessary to ensure consistency with an implementation of the general plan or an applicable specific plan. So that hopefully will provide you some clarity as to what Subdivision Map Act means when it's referring to design and improvements. So they're really the map related. As was previously indicated, the specific design of the home that might be permitted there pursuant to the subdivision comes later, and it will be subject to review by the Design Review Board.
So the only reason I'm bringing that up is because, for example, when you look at Mr. and Mrs. Roldan, that are the neighbors, and they were concerned about a 6-foot difference between the two properties and 2-story house going up. Here is the answer to you, that your concerns, while they are well taken, these are concerns that need to be addressed at the time of the design of the structure, not just simply subdividing the land. It's a totally different story. Like Mrs. Hammond said, that she's for perhaps a 2-home subdivision versus a 3. I mean, that's addressing the absolute what is in front of us. But when you have concerns about design of the structure, whether how much setback it's going to take, whether the second floor is going to set back further so it would not look into your property, hint, that kind of stuff, right? So that's not in front of us, ma'am. And what is really in front of us is exactly just that. The MAP Act tells us that there are certain things we can look at, certain things we cannot and we should not consider. This is not to say that we're insensitive to what we are hearing, by the way, because it is not so. And I agree with you about the comments that you've made. Allow me, we'll have a conversation here. So that's it. I just wanted to make that clarification. I'll hand out the baton to my colleagues.
I think Mr. Foy wants to add some additional comments from staff.
Just 2 quick comments, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Why wasn't I surprised, Mr. Foy?
Well, I just want to let the public know that in regards to solar panels, we're really prohibited from considering design aspects, either this commission or the Design Review Board. The state of California has forbidden us to forbid solar panels based on design. So that's just beyond. And secondly, I know there's been a lot of concern about parking here, so I just wanted to call the Commission's attention to one condition which calls for narrowing the driveway, the existing driveway, to what would be the center of the 3 homes. So the Commission could ask that extra parking area be maintained if it pleases you, as long as we could show that it was a legally existing situation.
How many can park in that area if it's not narrowed?
Yeah.
Looking at an aerial photo with a car shown in the driveway in this Google map, probably 6 cars could fit in that driveway the way it's shown on the map.
Thank you.
In addition to 2 within the garage.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before we go into deliberation, can we take a 2-minute break?
So what we are going to do in the next few minutes is to take a break for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and chat some more about this. Thank you. So we are back from our recess, and the public hearing is open again. Do you or my colleagues, do you have any questions from the staff or from the city attorney? Yes, Ms. Landrigan.
This is for probably the city attorney. The tentative track map, parcel map, to be exact, has notes right now that are no longer, according to Mr. Bogosian, correct. So for us to make any determinations, I think I have hesitancy against making it and conditioning the approval of a parcel map. Would it be reasonable to ask her to come back and then to approve it?
It is not inappropriate to condition a parcel map. It depends on the extent of the additional conditions that are being proposed. If this is something the applicant needs to think about and come back to address, that's one you may want to inquire of the applicant concerning any additional conditions, but it is not inappropriate to condition a map.
Thank you.
Should we have the applicant back up here so if you have a question from him or you wanted to discuss a condition, or are we done? We're satisfied?
No, I just wanted to ask that question.
Okay. Excellent. Any other questions from staff? I have a question from Mr. Foy. You threw out an idea that was quite interesting, and I'd like to revisit that idea about Lot 3 widening off the driveway. And tell us how it can help. I know parking is a huge issue here, and tell us how it can help us with that case.
Well, there's a condition proposed, number 8, which says that the driveway width of Lot 2 shall be reduced to that necessary for vehicular and pedestrian access to the garage and house on this lot with matching curb opening, and that the remaining width shall be landscaped.
Right.
So I just noting the number of concerns we had about the lack of parking in this neighborhood, if there was a way that we could increase the supply of admittedly unenclosed off-street parking here, if that was something the commission might choose to do.
I mean, I find that a pretty interesting idea. So,
normally it's not. You're not allowed to park in a space that doesn't lead to a garage. But if it's a pre-existing condition, it could be grandfathered in.
Any comments about that from any one of my?
Well,
go ahead.
What is the? That concrete driveway, as it is pretty wide, and if we want to break that up and suggest, like checker type of design with the grass and concrete, is that something that we can propose here as a condition?
Yeah, you could modify this condition that way, yes.
That's condition number 8.
It's really not clear to me where the curb cut is for this driveway is for Lot 2, and that's the one I'm assuming we're talking about. Or are we talking about Lot 3?
We're talking about just here.
I thought we were talking about Lot 2.
Lot 2. I'm sorry, not Lot 2.
So the reason I'm asking is that if the space between Lot 3 driveway and Lot 4 driveway has a parking space for a car, then keeping it or making it narrow might make it safer for a car there. But I don't know. I don't know if a car fits there or not. So I don't know what the discussion, because I can't tell the distance between those two with this map.
Looking at the title sheet, it appears that from the property line on Reynolds Drive up to the existing garage, is it a distance of 85 feet? So you could both have a narrower opening and then space further up towards the garage for an extra car to the side.
Do you mean on the property or do you mean on the street?
Oh, on the property.
Okay. Why does the size of the driveway matter? Of the curb cut. Why does that matter? What is the point?
Ms. Landrigan, if I may, Mr. Chair, we have to look at this plan on the subdivision map in association in connection with the landscape plan. Between the driveway of proposed Lot 3 and the curb cut of proposed Lot 2, there is a planting area which is evident in the landscape plan. There's a hint of that which is not very clear on the subdivision, on the parcel map. So the condition that we drafted is referring to lengthening that rectangular landscaped area between the two driveways. The driveway of
I'm sure you don't have a big plan.
I see it.
Yeah.
But why does that matter?
So that it would matter in the sense that this is the curb cut here,
Right.
and this will be the curb cut of Lot 3. So this landscaped area we were talking about, actually it is the landscape plan, we were talking about extending it further down so that the entire driveway, the entire width, the width of the concrete or the paving is reduced.
How wide is the driveway? 29 feet?
29 feet is the stem, so the driveway is probably
There.
27
I
or.
see. How wide is the curb cut? Is it typical 12-foot?
I cannot read,
Aren't-
but probably
there
it's a 10 or 10
Measurements
foot
on
curb cut.
All right.
So we were talking about extending this landscape strip a little further, but with a maneuvering area in front of the garage, still maintained. So that can accommodate 2 or 4 more cars or 3 more cars, plus additional cars within the stem of this driveway.
By extending the landscape area.
Yeah, this landscape could possibly be extended, maybe doubled in length or so.
But right now, the way that it's proposed, how many cars can it accommodate other than the garage?
Probably 6 more in this area, probably 6 more cars.
But the way that it's proposed, it's 6 more cars?
Possibly, yeah.
How about the way that it's conditioned?
The way it's conditioned, probably. The way it's conditioned, probably another 4 cars or 3 cars in front of the garage.
And if we extend landscaping, then we get another 2 or 3?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
That's assuming they have that many cars.
So according to this plan, your landscape plan, then you are keeping the existing 2 palm trees then?
There are palm trees. There's one here that's going to remain.
But I mean,
There are
I
2
don't
that are
see
going to
how it's
remain
gonna
here.
affect
There
community
is
parking, really.
there is one located where the proposed driveway for Lot 3 is located. That one's going to be removed.
What about Lot 1? There's one up there.
Okay.
And
thank
Lot
you.
1, yes, Lot 1 has an existing palm tree that's going to be removed.
Public
All right.
hearing's closed.
Thank you.
Public hearing is closed.
Actually, public hearing was, but the public hearing was closed. All right, so if there are no more questions for staff, I'd like to close the public hearing so we can deliberate. Accept it. It is closed.
I have one question. Based on comments that were made here that we weren't aware of, can we ask a question about one of those?
You know, I will open the public hearing and I'll take 2 more questions from you, and that's the end of that, if that's okay. So I'm opening the public hearing, and please approach.
Thank you, Commissioner, or Chairman and Commission. Brian Austin, 1215 Reynolds Drive. My question was about the proposal of the easement and for the matter of the groundwater draining out to Reynolds Drive. Right now, our lot is about in the center, halfway between Green Street and and Palmer on Reynolds Drive, and water stands in front of our house all the time. That is a low spot in the block. It does not drain continually from Green all the way down to the storm drain, which is about 50 feet south of Palmer. So that would be a very large concern for us to have more water draining onto Reynolds. And I don't know if this is the time to address that, or if you talked about design review or what, but it sounds like maybe this would be the time to talk about that. There's going to be more hardscaping. We will, all of that property now, because the part up on Cottage or on Vista does drain, I think, mostly towards Reynolds, but there's a lot of that that's just ground. There's going to be a lot more hardscaping and buildings, and we're going to have more water draining down to Reynolds, and that is a really large concern because, like I say, right now water stands almost continuously in the west side of Reynolds Drive in the middle of that block.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Appreciate it. I'm gonna ask Mr. Bogosian to come out and let me hear if you're gonna address this issue, I will listen to it, if that's all right.
I have a question about that.
Okay, so then,
It keeps going and going.
Mr. Hernandez, I will allow you a minute. Come on, Mr. Bogosian, wait a second. Let me handle it so you can hear this question as well.
See, my concerning about is the drainage.
Very good.
And I'm worried if my house get flooded, who's going to pay? The city or my insurance company, or who's going to be, or this guy, or who's going to take care of my damages if it's happening? So this is something that I want to know now.
So we appreciate that. We'll try and get you an answer. Thank you. Mr. Bogosian, if you can address this drainage issue real quickly.
The drainage, as discussed before, and the staff, Mr. Bagdian, mentioned, during the time when we submit for drainage approval, the building department, that's the time based on the design, we will be asking the owner if the owner wishes to have some pumping system to pump directly into the front street, or else, if not, presently the same drainage is going into the street, that Reynolds Street, because the property is inclined like this. So drainage, presently all the drainage exactly goes into the street where it's been going. So it's no change in the direction, except when you're introducing new surface, hard surface, which is the new resident, that itself, believe it or not, now we have many restrictions. The first thing we have to do, pick up that water, clarify into the system that it's going to be approved by the building department, then release it into the street with the first drainage goes into clarification, as you know, Susam.
First flush.
And then it's going to go into the street. And if the department that we are going to process says that there is a problem of drainage, that's not where the drainage is going to go. It's going to go in, then we have no choice but to pump into the street, whether we like it or not. That would be the solution, that it will be done essentially at the time of presenting the plans to the building department.
Thank you, Mr. Bogosian. Ms. Landrigan, you have a question?
No, I'd like the city engineers to.
So then let me close the public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Where is the city engineer?
I think they're sitting here.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner, my name is Chris Chiu with Public Works Engineering. Talking about the drainage, right now the drainage has a pattern that goes to the east side, right? South side?
Reynolds Street.
Towards the east.
The east side.
Towards Reynolds.
So the ideal design is to have all the drainage going to where it is going right now. If for any reason the applicant decide to drain lot number 1 going to the other side, they have to show to our department that the increase in the flow on the street will not impact downstream flow. If it does, they have to go back and have an easement and drain it down all the way to the east side. So it all depends on the capacity of the street, whether it can take the flow or not. That's how we look at it.
So, sir, if I'm correct, there's state law that says that you cannot drain your property across another property without an easement or
Right.
an agreement. Now, it is
Right.
one property.
Mhm.
It'll be 3 properties.
Right. So what happened is that we will have him sign a covenant to reserve an easement for the future property owners if he decided to sell the property in the future.
What happens if he sells the property in the middle of this project and there's no easement?
No, what will happen is that we will have, when they come in to apply for the building permits, the condition to get a building permit is to have that document signed.
But if he gets the subdivision map at first, approval, and he doesn't have that agreement, that is the reason that we are asked in the initial approval to have a grading and drainage plan as well as any easements that are recorded before it even goes. And that's the big concern I have. I'm really glad that you came and spoke, because unless that's in place and this property is sold and it's already divided, there is no covenant now at all.
Well, if you have him write the easement right now, basically we are detecting where he's going with the water. But that's not how we, as a city, is telling the engineer how to design the property. What we are doing is we are trying to enforce the code that makes sure that he does not violate it. So by asking for a specific easement right now is like somewhere you are ahead of the game. I don't know if I answered.
I'm a little bit confused, City Attorney, that your subdivision act, you know, when you told us, required us to have all this information on the drainage and everything, you know, for us to make the decision. And now the city engineer is telling us that, you know, we don't really have that prerogative here.
Well, that's what you're considering are the type of improvements and design. Those are the things that you're considering. You can condition to have additional information submitted as part of the approval. That can be a condition. I would like to note, however, that the easement condition the easement would need to be fulfilled prior to the issuance of any building permit. So the land may be divided, but nothing will be built there, short of that recorded easement being recorded in conjunction with the issuance of a building permit. So without the information about the building, Public Works can't know where to place that easement, and there would be no nexus necessary to impose that condition at this time because we don't know where that easement might be necessary. So it is, from a legal standpoint, I agree, premature to impose an easement condition when you don't know where that easement might be necessary, or if it would be necessary under certain circumstances. So I hope that helps to explain that component of it. And getting back to the beginning of your question, which is, again, it is absolutely appropriate to consider the design and improvements as I've described with respect to their consistency with the general plan and the specific plan.
Of which you indicated were all easements and grading were in there, by the way.
The design of them, yes.
In the design of them. And another concern that I have is that the existing Lot 2 is already pretty much developed out, so we would know where it would go. And it looks to me, see, that's the concern I have about an easement afterwards. Is there really space on Lot 2 to allow an easement outside of one place?
Typically, when you talk about easement, you think about a straight line going from one point to another point. Right?
Not here.
But in this case, they can lay the pipe around. I think there's a garage there. They can go around it by tearing up a portion of the concrete, lay the pipe, get the easement for that pipe, and cover it up. There's a lot of ways to do things if there is an obstacle in front of it. But it's up to the applicant to decide where they want to put the pipe. Then they will grant an easement to the organic easement from the property below to drain the stormwater away from their property.
One last question. Typically, I mean, at least in the city of LA, grading requirements, you have to be 15 feet away from a retaining wall to build a foundation. Is that correct still here?
That is a building department question. I can't answer you on that.
Okay.
Very well. We are close, so we can start our deliberation.
Okay.
Well,
I've said a lot.
I guess I'll go.
I mean, I would have, but I guess I have to listen to what you have to say first. So
Yeah. I hear a lot of concerns here, but what's here before us is really the subdivision of this lot. And, you know, it seemed very crowded to have 3 lots on this lot, but, you know, it's allowed by the, by the code to do that. I was trying to find some ways, and hopefully the builder will consider all the comments that's been made to reach out to the neighbors, to be mindful and to be respectful of their concerns when they design in the other phase. But for this, I was trying to find out from the Subdivision Act and what is before us. And I didn't feel comfortable with all the information that was not here. But after hearing out from the public works engineer, from our staff, I do feel that that we could go ahead and approve this parcel.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Likin.
This is one of those situations that pretty much anything I say, somebody out there is not going to like. So that's why in these circumstances I say as little as possible. Here's where the role of the planning commission is rarely understood. The planning commission is not about right or wrong. It's not about good or bad. It's not about pretty or ugly. It's about the process. It's the process of protecting individual property rights while holding the individual answerable to certain standards and rules that we as a community have adopted and approved. That's why we are as just mathematical as possible. Does it meet the minimum lot size? Are the structures proposed a certain square foot? And so on and so forth. I have absolutely no doubt that a number of you will be ill affected by the construction process. I get that. I have nothing to say about it, though. We hold property rights as sacrosanct, for better or for worse. But when you look at the property, it meets the requirements for what the property owner wants to do. Again, the right and wrong of it don't come into play. Ultimately, I am certain that in 5-10 years from now, we're going to look at 3 houses that will be attractive. I know that. They will be. But in the meantime, it's going to be inconvenient for all of you. But that's not for me to base any sort of decision on. And that's why I say as little as possible in these things, because I know that people are going to walk away unhappy with their city when all the city is doing is basically protecting the minority against the majority. Just like it would if any individual member out there would come and apply for something similar, I would stand in front of you as a shield against the community. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Mnuchin. Ms. Landrigan.
Well, I totally support the fact that one can develop their own property. This is the United States of America. It's one of our great privileges. We do go through a public process. How I feel about the sizes and certainly what the code is irrelevant. But I do stand by the fact that I'm very concerned about the tentative parcel map, the way it's presented. It was the materials that I would need. I'm a technical person. I'm a licensed individual, and to me, I have to look at the facts to make decisions. I think I've asked questions. I've gotten pretty good answers. The concern I truly have is some of the inaccuracies and then some of the changes that are made. And right now, one of the concerns I have is the retaining wall. There is closer than 15 feet, and I'm pretty sure that it's a state law that determines how close you can put a building to that. So I am concerned because the tentative tract map should not change considerably once it's approved. And that is the concern I have, because we're approving the general site planning. It should not be changed by the Design Review Board. It should be approved by us. And I don't have enough comfort in all the materials I've received to feel really comfortable without it potentially coming back with the correct changes. The grading plan, clearly the site is flatter than the grading plan indicates, so there's a lot of discrepancies here that trouble me. One of the conditions that I don't see on here that I would think that would go under conditions number 4 and probably would be that in hillside areas we typically have some construction language that indicates that there's traffic control that deals with the access and the safety of those streets, and I don't see that on here, and I think that's certainly an oversight that should be considered. I also...
You're talking about manned traffic control.
Oh, yes, exactly. Especially because it's going to be on two sides of a neighborhood block that's going to be truly impacted, so I really think that would have to be in there. I also... agree with, I think it was Miss Susanna Roldan, that the Briskies, really you should talk to your neighbors. I mean, a lot of times this would solve a problem. We tell every developer, you're a developer. You're a neighbor, but you're a developer. And typically if we have individuals who've talked to their neighbors, it's less of a problem. I see that Ms. Brinsky is shaking her head no, but I'm just telling you, your life would have been a little easier. So having a neighborhood, not that the neighbors get to decide what you want to build, but it does sort of lessen the feeling of discord. So I have not much to add to what the neighbors said. I will be voting against it because I really feel that I don't have enough of the information to make the finding, and the finding I will tell you that I would have a hard time making because I think we should substantiate our choices.
Commissioner Landrigan, just because I'm a little bit uneasy about this as well, so just to make clarification where you're coming from, you are just looking for clarification, more cleaned up information that will come before us. So I think you're talking more for continuation, for more.
I would be happy for continuation, and if we had revised plans and I could consider them with that information, I would be. I would probably be able to support them, but I would.
Yeah, I would
without that,
well.
I don't have the information I need to support this.
I agree.
Then if that's the case, go ahead and make a motion.
Yeah.
But I need
if
to
the
be
process
clear to the
is to be,
applicant
well,
what we need.
well, it will be in whatever motion that you make.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I mean, if the process is to be preserved, then we need to put everybody through their paces. And
as a final say.
And I'm waiting because I'm enjoying listening to all of you pontificating about this thing.
I'm not pontificating.
Let me just add one more, unless you folks have other stuff that you need to say.
I'm happy to hear your point of view.
So the technical aspects that, and by the way, this is quite customary for us to challenge each other and talk about stuff, and I think it, lots of times I get, for my edification, she says stuff that I enjoy, and I don't know if it's the other way around, but that's
it has been
her prerogative. So if your information on the drainage, which by the way is one of the issues that I have, and I'll talk about the second issue that I have, if the drainage and it was plotted properly on the map and so forth, the technical issues that you brought up, you would have had no issues with approving the map, tentative track map.
Well, I think it meets all of the requirements that are set forth in the Subdivision Map Act. The one that it doesn't, that I have a difficult time with, that's in the motion here, I have all my notes, and that would be compliance with subdivision design standards and criteria of the general municipal code, the Glendale, and the conditions of approval that will protect the public health, safety, and welfare and prevent any serious health problems. And what that means is that the health, safety, and welfare is a building and safety issue. And there needs to be enough of a preliminary drafting plan, preliminary understanding of what the hydrology is, and even stating which direction you're going to drain it in, or if if it changes because of the design, it should change very minorly. That's my understanding of anything that is approved as a tentative tract or a parcel map. And so those are the concerns I have, because when I see now that Mr. Bogosian said that we're going to keep that retaining wall, and I see that the lot here is now,
Doesn't make sense.
it's not, it doesn't seem to me that this is a realistic plan based upon that. So I think looking at it again with fresh eyes and responding to the site as it is would, to me, make me able to make a decision that I would feel was protecting the neighbors and Lot 2 and the street.
Very good. Thank you for the clarification. My concern is the hydrology, is the Hernandezes and Boldens and the rest of you. And Mr. Austin was just talking about how water puddles were off of the property. But other than that, I've traversed those streets. I understand. I know that apartment building that you brought up, but that wasn't built recently. It was built in 1970s. I mean, I know that because that's my business to know this stuff, right? And I can tell you, it is even in the middle of the day, at times, you're not going to be able to find parking spaces on those streets. It is precisely for that once this technical issues that Ms. Landrigan brought up is addressed, and once we are a little bit clear on the drainage issue, then I would add to that condition number 8, and I don't know what the language is going to be if we are, because I'm inclined to continue it as well at this time. These are some of the issues that we're having to tackle with right now that makes us very, very uneasy. But I will tell you this, overall, I know it's 3 lots, and I know it's 3 homes, and I know they're self-parked, they have their garages and so forth. It's all fine and dandy. Had I not driven Vista Court for many, 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 many times, off of Green and off of Reynolds, I would have said, hey, it's modest, it's acceptable, and what have you. But the more I think about it, I would have had no issues with the technical issues because I know our city staff can handle it properly. I would have had no issues with the drainage. If this was only for 2-lot subdivision, because in my opinion, at that location, that's what cries out for, as opposed to 3 homes. But that's my opinion. But right now, the majority, from what I can see, want to continue so they can get their technical clarifications, so that they can get their drainage plan a tad more specific, and then maybe a decision couldn't be rendered. Now, what is it, Ms. City Attorney? At this time, if we want to continue, basically, then the motion will be continuation with consideration of every individual commissioners to be taken into account. That's because it's like a message trying to give to the applicant. Am I correct? Or?
Yes, you can give direction both to staff and to the applicant to return with certain information as you specified. You can continue it to a date certain. You may want to consult with the applicant concerning what would be an appropriate amount of time.
So as far as Commissioner Landrigan's concerns, is really, we know the technical clarifications in condition number 4, and as far as my suggestion, my concern is condition number 8, and perhaps, I right now I am at perhaps the minority on this thing, but my ultimate goal for this land would be subdivision for 2 homes as opposed to 3. With that, I don't mind if somebody makes a motion to continue. Ms. Landrigan, go ahead.
All right. I would like to make a motion to continue consideration of the tentative parcel tract map number GLN 1629 with the following items coming. I think it needs a brand new survey. The survey that's there now does not represent what's there. I have no idea what the top of wall is. I have no what the bottom of wall. All of the grading issues that I think could be of a concern should be on that tentative tract map, stamped by a surveyor. The other is I would like Lot 1 to be tentatively reviewed by the building department, and they probably did, and they saw the 19 feet to the retaining wall, and they thought that was fine. So based upon the new distance away from it, I would also like on the tentative tract map to show the actual canopy of the oak tree, which should be on there, and the actual on Lot 1. Since that is going to be protected. I did not see the oak tree protection in the conditions of approval.
Ms. Landrigan and Planning Commissioners, it's a mitigation measure in the mitigated negative declaration.
Okay, mitigated
We've
negative.
also listed it. Let me see where it's at. It's a condition in the motion on page 5, condition number 29.
Oh, okay.
Which is the same condition as in the mitigation measures.
Okay, I see that. All right. And I would also like to add some traffic control to the conditions of approval.
I don't know. Hang on a second.
In hillsides.
Oh, you mean when and if it's going to be built? Is what you're talking about?
Construction.
Are we premature about that at this time, or can that be a condition, Mr. Foy?
Yeah. I maybe you can add that as a condition.
Very good.
Yeah, we've seen the conditions before.
Excellent.
So I think, and then so the parcel map would be redrawn to show all of that and address proposed drainage and easements that would take it either down to Reynolds or if, and I can't imagine you want a sump pump. They're held, maintained. But that's up to you.
Well, we have to be careful because
Whatever, but I mean,
far
there
as the
has
easements.
there needs to be, drainage shown on here, the requirement there. The calculations of how much runoff is going to come from the proposed square footage of how is it going to be captured, what is it going to do, and if you want to propose a cistern, I mean, that's a method of dealing with it. But there needs to be some consideration of that based upon all of the new impervious services that are here, for me to feel comfortable with the plan.
I support that.
Did you jot down the conditions? Okay. Please add condition number 8 as well, as far as widening it, so we can get perhaps 1 or 2 more cars in there. And with that, whoever is ready to make a motion.
Well, I think she just did.
I just made that motion.
And I second it.
Do you want to read those back to us, Mr. Bagdigian, or do we go to, yes,
And
ma'am.
to a certain time. I'd like to, Mr. Chair, can we ask the applicant to let us know how long that'll take? Would you?
Opened.
First of all, what is about the traffic? Is there going to be any traffic requirement?
The traffic
Study.
It would be during construction that you would
During
control
construction.
those
Why
two
are we
streets.
talking about it at this stage?
Because this is where you're getting your conditional.
Conditions.
You're getting your conditions in
In
here.
other words, it's as a flagman.
Okay. All right. Very good. I think within 2 weeks we will have everything,
that we need.
even less than 2 weeks, but
So we
I'm
could have
sure-
it at the beginning of May.
May 6th is the next meeting.
No,
May 6th and May 20th.
Yeah,
All the
I
calculations
want a new survey.
in 2 weeks?
So that would be a new survey?
the survey is done as it is. The survey cannot change, as you know.
Well, that's not done by a surveyor or stamped by a surveyor, and when was it done?
We have a survey done by stamped surveyor,
Okay.
registered surveyor.
All right.
This is taken from that plan. I mean, a tentative is prepared from the
But none of-
qualified land surveyors
Uh-huh.
survey of the boundary
Okay, but they didn't do the,
and the topography. That's how we have came up. Of course, if you're asking for top of wall elevations, that is not included here.
Right.
We will add that.
Okay.
That is different. But what you see is there existing as it is, done by a land surveyor.
okay.
Very good,
Fine,
thank you.
That's fine then.
And tentative is prepared by civil engineers.
Yes,
It
yourself.
does not have to be land surveyor.
No, I understand.
So, Mr. Bagdigian, there is no requirement of a brand-new survey. The existing survey that they have that shows the topo needs to be provided to us,
Yes, and we can work with that.
not a new survey.
Right.
And this
But-
existing building is about 10, 15 feet away from existing wall, and it was built grandfathers.
No, I
You
mean
cannot-
Lot 1.
Okay, that's what he's talking about, too.
No, Lot 1's brand new.
Brand new, yeah.
Lot 1, usually it's up to the soils engineer. We cannot even talk about it. It's going to be built, it's going to be
No, I
approved
still
plans
want-
and everything.
I
This is
understand.
just the footprint shown.
I understand. But it also says it's 19 feet from a wall that's not there now.
Okay, Commissioner.
So the more clarifications,
Very
Mr.
good.
the
No
better off
problem.
we are all going to
No
be, right?
problem. But it's fine.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
I would like to request a clarification on
Sure.
this. If Mr. Bogosian is saying he can get this information within 2 weeks, are we preparing a staff report with the documents, the revised documents as attachments? Because that's going to take some processing time and distribution time to the
So
planning
May
commissioners also.
20th is the second meeting?
May
That's-
20th, yes.
May 25? May
20.
20.
20.
May 20.
20, yes.
So it's
May
all you need is add the date certain to your.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there a second for the motion? Second. Second. Ms. Mavandi, we would like us roll call.
Planning Commissioners Landrigan,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Manukian,
Aye.
Chairperson Astorian.
And this is for continuation till May 20th.
Without further notice?
Without further notice.
Without further notice. Thank you, folks, for coming.
Oh,
Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda. Ma'am, we are in a meeting right now. Thank you. Community Development Department updates.
The only thing I would say is that the City Council adopted an urgency ordinance placing a moratorium on the establishment of new massage establishments. So we will be rewriting standards and processes and bringing that back to the Commission.
All right. Thank you. And under item number 9, we have comments from commissioners. Hey, Brian. Seeing none, so we will call for adjournment.
Move adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you.